are about to transition to go on to a panel discussion. We've received quite a number of questions and interest around this Data Protection Act. The previous speaker, Olivia, spoke in length about the importance of security, particularly where data is concerned. I've always said one of the weakest and greatest parts about security is ability to impart knowledge to our users. As professionals in the ICT space, we always have to make sure that we are teaching and imparting knowledge, particularly where security is concerned. You are as good as, your weakness is as good as your security, as your users are involved. We are going to make a quick transition where I'll be inviting a number of panelists to come on board, where we will be talking in depth again on the different areas that we have spoken about during the presentations this morning. Thank you to the production team. We are now going and gearing on the second edition of the BTC Cloud Talks, where we've brought the key experts that made several presentations this morning to come and unpack and answer the questions that you have posted online. Once again, my name is Btc Kenneth Sitimela. I'm the founder and managing director of a startup company called Leverage Point in Botswana. I will give my esteemed panel, starting with the gentleman on the right, an opportunity to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Kenneth. My name is Mumbuluki Khautului. I am the BTC data center manager responsible for the BTC facility day-to-day operations, as well as the cloud infrastructure that we have heavily invested on, pioneering our digital transformation journey. Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you once again. My name is Olivia Sineo Lamans. I am the Legal Services Manager at BTC. My portfolio, just to summarize it briefly, is legal advice, contract drafting, as well as working with the IT guys to ensure that they are compliant with the different legislations that would either come in place and affect them.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Cecil Masiha, the Deputy Permanent Secretary, responsible for ICT in the Ministry of Transport and Communications. On a day-to-day basis, my role pertains to policy, legal, and regulatory frameworks in Botswana relating to ICT, as well as the developmental aspect of that, and including implementation of those policies. Thank you.
I must thank you for the in-depth presentations that we provided for this morning. And just to set the tone, ask the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Cecil Masiha, to once again tell us when we expect businesses as well as people to know that the Act has now come into effect and compliance must now be an issue they need to deal with.
Thank you very much, Restimela. As you noted in my submission, I indicated, ladies and gentlemen, that the Act requires that a commission be in place, and which commission will be led by the Information and Data Protection Commissioner, assisted by his or her deputy, as well as the necessary staff to complement their work. When government passed this legislation, it was then necessary, because we never had that institution in place in the first instance. It was then necessary to identify and recruit suitable candidates to come and lead the commission. And thankfully, that process has been completed. We have a person appointed, and the announcement will be duly done in a short space of time. This person will be assisted, like I indicated, by his or her deputy, and the recruitment of the necessary staff will commence. I'm sure once they are on the ground, they will be moving with speed, because our digital economy ambitions as a country insists and dictate that this institution or this structure be put in place. And they will be communicating for sure with the public out there. So let's just be patient, 1 more, 2 more weeks, possibly. We'll be hearing from the ministry responsible for promulgating this act, as well as the commissioner himself or herself.
I like how you bring about issues of ambition of government in as far as digital transformation is concerned. And we always talk and speak about the provision of enabling legislature to foster this sort of environment. What can we expect beyond the Data Protection Act? In your presentation, you also spoke about the Cybersecurity Act. What sort of processes are in place around this piece of legislature?
What is going to be important is this function to be an effective institution in our economy, so that, as stated as part of those objectives of this law, that our personal data, our rights as individuals are protected fully, and the compliance of this law is put in place. What we would be expecting, the regulation of our data processing in Botswana will be now, we'll have an oversight body in place. Obviously, it's not adequate to have only this piece of law. We need to have also complementing law. In place, we have cybercrime and computer-related crime. These are different laws that we will be reliant on in an eventuality or commission or omission on somebody's part who is obliged by law to fulfill certain obligations. We are in the process of developing a cybersecurity law. It's really important to understand that information systems are very vulnerable, as the previous speakers also have spoken to that point. At the present moment in time, when we talk about the safeguards that we need to put in place to ensure the security of people's data, we don't necessarily have law that compels compliance insofar as infrastructural safeguards that needs to be put in place. This law goes some way to initiate that, to put it in place, but we also need other supporting legislation, not only for compliance, but for education and structures where information should be shared, like BTC as an operator in the communications sector, placing an obligation to them, the survivability of Botswana, insofar as its her economic, social, and security interests. All these players are obliged, should be obliged to do certain actions in the instances of fortifying and protecting this infrastructure, information infrastructure.
It's always interesting and humbling to have a lead in the panel. And Ottilia, you spoke extensively about the preparedness journey that BTC is currently undertaking. What can customers expect? Should they expect notifications to be coming from the organization? And what are you also doing internally in terms of preparing for this compliance journey?
Well, like I said, we are currently undergoing an impact assessment. That is very crucial because before we can send out any communication to our clientele, especially those whom we collect personal information from, we need to ensure that all gaps have been filled. And this does not only go to our policies, our contracts, as I stated earlier on. It also has to boil down to our internal employment. So all our employees have to coincide with the heart of the act. So as legal, what we're also trying to do is to ensure that within this impact assessment, there's a gap analysis. So where we identify issues that need to ensure that they sync with the heart of the act, we ensure that there's compliance. There are issues of disposal of information, personal information. We need to ensure that even when personal information is collected, disposal of it is disposed in such a way that it won't land on anyone's feet or doorstep, i.e. throwing it in the bin, and then next thing you find it's in the bus rank as scrap. We by all means will ensure that that moves away. Not to say that that's what we're doing, but as an organization, we are now compelled by the Act to ensure that extensive diligence is carried out. Yeah.
One of the many things that could potentially come as a risk with this process could potentially be phishing emails, where people are receiving emails that are purporting to be from BTC. What sort of advice could you tell people to look forward to, particularly in terms of the change management process?
Well, things like those are basically cybersecurity attacks, right? So what we currently have in place is we have constant training of cybersecurity to make sure that all our employees are upskilled. And this is a running thing that basically runs every other month, because we want to ensure that when we collect your information, an employee won't say, I clicked on it, I thought it was an email from HR, so I thought it was supposed to be a message directed to me. We are training our employees to ensure that information, whether it's personal or otherwise, it's not opened by error, for lack of a better word. Then we've got systems in place, which Mumpuluki spoke extensively about, and I think he's the right person to talk about. We've got various systems in place to ensure that there is adequate protection, not only for cloud, but also in terms of transmission of various communications, because remember, we are a telco. We don't only deal with either cloud or just emails. There's more to it than that. So in terms of processing, we have a greater job, and I think with the guidance of the regulator, we will get there once we get proper regulation and guidance as to what best practice will be. But for now, I think we're doing quite a great job at ensuring that information is adequately protected. Yeah.
And I must commend the corporation in terms of coming up with this sort of forums where we are interacting with the business community, as well as educating the users around what they can expect around the data protection and their responsibility as digital citizens. Yeah. But I'm equally excited about the offering that are coming from the safe haven that we call Sentlhaga. And please, Mumpuluki, rebuttress yourself in terms of the products that are in offer and what people can expect.
Like I said during my presentation, different ICT professionals have different needs. We at BTC have identified gaps in the market, gaps around capital investment for ICT 10, for server storage, networking equipment. That's a headache for management to spend money on tin, support that tin, phase out that tin, and then ultimately reinvest again and buy new tin, right? So at BTC, we want our main objective, our main offering, considering that all applications sit on a operating system, on top of an operating system, which could be a virtual machine or physical box. BTC offers the virtual data center as an offering that is strategically positioned to take away the need to acquire the tin. We do away with the need to buy networking equipment, storage equipment, server equipment, CPU memory, and processing essentially. So you as a customer, a small man, medium to even large scale, easily worry less about acquiring the particular tin. So we offer you a visual data center, storage as a service for all those guys who are comfortable with that tin, but now are beginning to experience the backdrop of actually having to have that tin in place. We have seen exponential growth of data over the years due to the advent of artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things. There are new innovations in the technology space that has caused an influx, a rapid growth, an explosion, as it were, of data. So you'll find that a lot of our customers, our clientele, would be implementing these, believing that they have safeguards in terms of capacity and storage, and later on to discover that they do not have adequate to facilitate the storing of such data. So we have a storage as a service to accommodate such a need, and for all, again, our customers that are looking for backup strategies that are world-class. BTC offers backup as a service for all enterprises, large, small, and medium. Considering that backup solutions in themselves are expensive, we are economically, strategically placed to cater for those needs. You as a customer worry less about having to renew licenses for your backup software, storage software, server software. We offload all of that. Our main offerings essentially are the virtual data center, storage as a service, and backup as a service, as these are the fundamental cores for running all enterprises.
You spoke about platform as a service, storage as a service, infrastructure as a service, as well as backup as a service. One of the questions that are coming from the innovators is, when can they expect back-end as a service where they are able to collaborate and develop software together online?
BTC currently is in a digital transformation journey. I must emphasize that it is within our strategy to bring about cloud native or cloud aware sort of setup where we will, of course, ultimately accommodate all these small community of developers who are looking for such platforms to develop their community of applications and software. We are in the roadmap. Our CEO, Aldrin Sivako, did mention earlier that BTC is going through an explosive digital transformation journey. So it is within our roadmap, and as Olivia stated, we will be communicating and having a lot of these every now and then to have our customers aware of such innovations that we'll be putting in place. We have a cloud native, a cloud aware sort of infrastructure. We are moving rapidly towards the platform as a service as well as the software as a service platforms that you are referring to now. Yes.
I must say that as a beneficiary and a customer in the Centlara Data Cloud, it's been an interesting journey. The 60 days that has been allocated to us to test and assure ourselves that indeed this is the right platform and the right packages to go to are quite interesting in themselves. Ramasika, I'm also receiving a question where we are enacting a number of legislatures, including the already existing ones. The question that I'm getting is could there be potentially a conflict between the BOCRA Act as well as the Data Protection Act? I want you to speak to how government is harmonizing all these pieces of legislature and allowing them to complement each other.
Our process in Botswana is such that ministries responsible for their areas performing their mandate develop layman's instructions. It's an open and transparent process where people collaborate and bring their ideas on board. And subsequent to those layman's instructions being developed, they are taken to Attorney General. We have a drafting division there. That drafting division, amongst other things, ensures that our laws do not conflict and they identify such gaps. And in any case, upon the formulation of the draft bill is taken back, again another process ensues where we cross-check and subsequently the draft bill is debated in Parliament. So it's a process that kind of safeguards conflicts and addresses issues that may arise in the process of formulation of this law. The Data Protection Act actually is complemented by the Communication Regulatory Authority Act of 2012. If you recall, in the board's responsibility in Section 4 of the Communications Regulatory Authority Act, it talks about protection of consumers. And these consumers can be also data subjects. It's a role that the BOCRA plays in pursuance to this piece of law, the Communication Regulatory Authority Act. So they are kind of complementing one another. But here, with the Data Protection Act, now we have a controlled way where there is proper regulation insofar as data processing in the country, how it's supposed to be done. The Communication Regulatory Authority Act was not supposed to be a Data Protection Act per se, but it talks to protection of consumers, which are, in any case, this piece of law is talking towards, but in a more comprehensive and deliberate way with functions and mandate given to this commission.
I like how you unpack it in terms of the processes that government undertakes to come up with these pieces of legislation, to say the different players are brought on board to come and talk about them in terms of what they entail and make sure that there are no gray areas. They always say the law does not have gray areas. And as you rightly put it earlier on, it is the responsibility of us as digital citizens to make sure that we understand what the law entails. We are pursuing the mandate of a knowledge economy. And we continue to want to attract investors to come and set businesses and data centers in Botswana. What sort of impact do you anticipate this piece of legislature to provide for and foster in this road to achieving this mandate?
Initially, when I made my submission, I spoke about confidence. It's really about confidence and trust. When you have a law like this that is comprehensive and very explicit about your rights as a data subject, how your data is handled, and places where you can go to upon feeling aggrieved and where you can appeal, it gives you comfort, where then you have a place or you have an opportunity for recourse. You can make those appeals as is necessary with the law in place. If you talk about the European GDPR, for instance, if we were to host, as an example, some data for a citizen of a European Union, as an example, they would want to know whether we have the law in place and whether or not it's harmonized with the convention in the European Union, as an example. This is what we strive for in most instances, if not all instances, or when we are formulating laws in Botswana. And we try to domesticate and harmonize. This is an important exercise, even at SADC level and at AU level. Having this law, one of the key questions that they will have to address, how harmonized it is with the conventions out there. Remember, in terms of cybersecurity law, national laws on their own are not adequate. You have to rely on international law, its applicability in the ICT and the cyberspace. And that becomes a tricky question because, among other things, you need to have ratified, acceded to these international conventions.
I think that those are interesting dimensions, particularly when we agree that we are signatories to a number of regional and international statutory acts, and indeed bringing and complying with the data protection will certainly increase inflow of investors that would be coming to Botswana. Ottilia, if I may ask, what sort of mechanisms are in place And maybe I should ask also Mumpuliki the same question. What sort of mechanisms are in place for people to understand the relationship that we have with international partners such as Microsoft in as far as the use of products such as Office 365 vis-a-vis the Data Protection Act? What role is BTC playing in terms of storage, in terms of provision of the platforms and the likes?
Mumpuliki, you want to take that one first? Please do.
Have a go, man. Have a go. Wow, Kenneth.
Well, I think just to briefly say, maybe Mumpuliki will continue thinking about this one. I think these are one of the platforms. Like right now, trying to upskill your client at home.
Yeah.
You're basically trying to show them by bringing in Microsoft to say, look, in as much as we're telling you that we've got mechanisms in place, here is what they have to offer. And Ottilia just demonstrated it in depth, what it is and how they try and reconcile with the Act in terms of, as Mr. Masicha says, harmonizing the aim of the Act. But my mic? Okay. To go in depth in terms of storage. Mumpuliki.
Speaking to the, look, BTC is a cloud service provider. We have BTC Cloud, BTC Business Cloud, which essentially sits in country for all intents and purposes, meaning all your data and all your deployments sitting on BTC Cloud will be sitting resident in the country. And then as BTC, we then assessed and identified that indeed we are not a jack of all trades. We have ventured into strategic partnership with hyperscalers, your Microsoft, your AWSs, and the like. And then as legislation comes in to regulate how we should start sensitizing our customers and bringing the attention to the type of services they're consuming, we are, like Olivia said, we are doing that analysis internally to first and foremost determine our posture as BTC from a legal standpoint, and then ultimately roll out the same posture towards our customers with regards to how the Data Protection Act harmonizes with the bigger ecosystem and the bigger community, as Ramasire and the regulator will guide us going forward. So with regards to your question, Kenny, I believe that internally we are following legal, and legal is following the regulator in ensuring that we sensitize our customers in terms of where their data is sitting, how their data is accessed. And again, our partners through Microsoft have come forth and saying, this is how we harmonize and comply with the DPA in Botswana.
And also remember, the client or the data subject has the right to request for information. So that is one of the rights afforded to them in terms of the Act. So as and when our clients do come up to ask for information extensively in order to ensure transparency, we are there to provide it for them. We are not in a position to hide anything away from them, except for obviously what would be confidential to the organization. But what relates to them directly, we have to be as open as we can. So for now, we only have the regulator, or rather the Act has given us a period of a year, which I think now we've got 8 months. Hopefully they will extend it. But within this period, we are working on getting us and the client in sync, or us and the data subject in sync. So like I said when I was presenting, it is an interesting but complex act. So the sensitivity around it, the harmonization of it, the whole aspect of trying to ensure that organization and data subject are in harmony or in sync in the aim of what the Act is trying to push through is going to be a slow learning or a slow process, which we are slowly getting there. We will get there.
I'm certain that we will most certainly get there.
Yeah.
And I like that you keep bringing those points that we spoke about from the Act. I think Ramasika touched on 7, if not 8 tenets, and transparency is one of the most important critical ones to the development partners. But beyond that, I also like that you are bringing in the dimension that in the digital space, we can't do everything on our own. Yeah. We always have to bring in the hyperscalers in terms of having to ensure that we are compliant and bringing the best service to the people. BTC received 3 prestigious records and awards last year, and this is this goes to show the level of involvement of our partners and the belief that the product that we are offering is indeed world class. When we are slowly now coming towards the end of our discussion, Ramasika, could you once again touch and talk to the ordinary small startup based at the incubator, to talk about the importance of these laws and the importance of them informing themselves as they are eager to undertake opportunities in the digital space?
Earlier on, I lamented on the issue that today we're talking about data as a commodity that can be exploited, and your startups, your innovators could take advantage of such data. However, they should understand that there is a law in place, and whatever they do, they must do it within the parameters of the law, and there are obligations on their part. This law is such that it allows for exploitation of data, but in a controlled way where we respect, just as the constitution of this country dictates, the rights of individuals. In the instances where they may have given consent for the data to be processed or exploited or accessed and utilized, it should be such that at all times the startups, your innovators, do safeguard this data to the extent that it is used and solely for what has been agreed with the subject, the data subject. In the instances where the data subject so wishes to withdraw the consent that he may have given, the innovators and your entrepreneurs must respect such withdrawal and understand that it's well within the rights of this data subject to withdraw the consent that they may have given in the first instances. They need to familiarize themselves with this piece of law. Today we are talking about data by sensors, and this data by sensors would include images and videos of individuals as they transverse Gaborone as an example. Today we're noting at different junctions cameras that have been deployed out there. There are reasons why they've been deployed. It's for traffic control as an example. It's for ensuring safety of people in those junctions. As we implement the enterprise architecture blueprints in government, which seeks to develop data reference models that will categorize, classify, and put this data in the right format that machines can exploit, it's also important to understand that the government may, I'm not saying what it's going to be like that right now, in due process, avail such data. But when such data is availed to them, the entrepreneurs, your innovators, they must understand again the parameters at which they must confine themselves to when they exploit in the state. I thank you.
That is indeed an exciting journey to look forward to as Botswana continues to digitize and become part of the knowledge economy. Otilia, as we are closing this discussion, I did ask you earlier on, what can customers expect from BTC in as far as the journey is concerned? I know that you did say maybe we will get an extension, but certainly there is 8 months to work with.
Yeah. For now, remember, the greatest area is to try and ensure that we have client confidence in giving us information. So what they can expect, and I'm saying this purely from a legal perspective, because remember the business or the organization is a whole. So it would have to coincide in order to provide this to the client. But what they can expect is that we are going to be with them through this journey. We're going to ensure that we have policies in place that will ensure that their data, their personal data, is protected. We don't want a situation where we have to obtain personal information from our clients and they feel kind of scared to provide it. It has to be as transparent and open as possible, and they must know that we will be accountable for whatever information that is provided to us by them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Otilia. Mumpuluki, I really want you to buttress on the 60-day trial run that is being offered to the small business community as well as the startups, just so that they can test drive and appreciate what you are offering at the Haven.
First and foremost, the contact details, sales@btc.bw. For all our participants who are watching now, who've registered for this particular event, there should be a form at the end of this. A link will be sent to you for you to fill out in order to enjoy the 60-day service. My belief, knowing BTC, this particular drive with Ku and his supporting staff is one of those services that we are buzzing about. We want to assure our customers that upon request, we will give them access to their services. So after this, BTC, sales@btc.bw, there will be a link that will come from the BTC team to everybody attending for you to register with us to participate on the 60-day trial.
Well, we've come to the end of the deliberation of this very informative panel discussion. And foremost, I must thank Botswana Telecommunication Corporation for putting together this comprehensive opportunity for the different speakers to come and showcase what the government of Botswana is doing, what the development partners are offering in as far as the Data Protection Act is concerned. We are going to be sharing the content of these discussions across the social media platforms that are there for Botswana Telecommunication Corporation. Please look up for them, and most importantly, do get in touch with with BTC to ask them further questions. Today we were planting a seed, and that seed is about informing the general public about some of what is on offer. Look out for the BTC Cloud Talks. And once again, my name is Kenneth Mutsidisi Sitimela. It's been a pleasure having yourself on the panel, and indeed a pleasure to also have the woman voice as part of this panel. I remember Ramasiha, the last discussion, it was men in suits. I'm certain that there are many other initiatives within the country where women are being empowered and given an opportunity to be part of science, technology, and innovation space. Once again, thank you for having been part of this conversation. And as part of the closing remarks, I'm going to be inviting Mr. Edward Wicks to come on stage and give us the closing remarks. I thank you for this participation. Please remain seated while I invite my... thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. By now you'll be able to see how BTC can transform your organization through the cloud. At this stage, I'd like to thank the audience. Thank you all for participating and taking some time to come and listen to what our panelists and speakers have had to say. I'd like to thank them all. They've provided really engaging input on the subject. And just to summarize, what we've looked at is we've gone through the legislation. I think what's come out clearly is this concept of adequate safeguards. And it's the responsibility of people who collect, the organizations that are collecting data and the providers of the infrastructure that it's running on, to make sure that we provide safeguards to protect the data and use it within the framework that's been provided for us through the legislation. And another key point is that ignorance of the law is no defense. We all have a responsibility to make sure that we understand the implications of collecting that data and how we must protect it and use it within the framework that's provided. We've looked at the BTC technology infrastructure. Mompoloki's taken us through in great detail and with great enthusiasm what BTC has put in place for you to leverage around the cloud. And we've also looked at Microsoft 365 compliance tools. A real detailed insight into how much work Microsoft's put into that, and also an understanding of the law and how they interpret it to assist you as a consumer of their services to be able to be compliant with the legislation. I think to close out, cloud provides elastic scalability and enables you to leverage memory, processing, and storage as and when you need it. It provides the ability for you to choose your deployment and service models. So there's public cloud, hybrid cloud, private cloud, deployment options. And then there's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. And you can choose as an organization how you want to leverage that. It's not about us being prescriptive, and the options are almost infinite in how you leverage the cloud. What else does the cloud provide? It provides security. BTC provides acclaimed security through its partnership with Fortinet. And on that note, we're an enabler of peace of mind. If you look at the BTC partnership with Microsoft, if you're a small business, you're probably worried about laptops being stolen, hard drives crashing, your information being hacked. If you were to leverage Microsoft 365, it takes away a lot of those fears, because it provides you with backup, it provides you with storage, and it provides you with security. So it brings peace of mind. And we at BTC actually run our whole business on Microsoft 365. So we're an evangelist for it, and we're an organization that you can come and look at to see how we actually operate, leveraging that technology. At BTC, we have world leaders using our data center. We've got Google, Netflix, and Facebook operating most of the services that are consumed in in Botswana out of our data center. SAP R1 is being run by RPC Data out of our data center, totally on our infrastructure. And we operate our own network intelligence and management systems out of our data center to enable network virtualization. So we have a very robust, secure, safe environment from which you can operate your cloud services. We're on an explosive digital transformation journey, and over the next 3 years, you'll see profound changes in the way BTC interacts with its customers. And we want all our customers to leverage the cloud. And we're offering all our business and government customers a 60-day trial, as has been discussed extensively, of our cloud infrastructure. Perhaps you might use it to trial our backup as a service and to see the peace of mind that moving the cloud can bring around all the data that you have in your organization. And you can understand the flexibility and efficiency that it brings. We at BTC, we have the infrastructure, we have the skills, we have the partnerships to transform your organization in the way you want to do it. Please talk to our sales teams, email us, and engage us to find out more about how we can leverage cloud services in partnership with you. Thank you very much.
Well, I must thank you for the great summary of what transpired today. And indeed, what the deliberations were about today. The production team was fantastic in terms of having to take this and give it to the different Botswana. Let me thank the leadership from BTC, the government of Botswana, in terms of the different things that they are providing, and in terms of having to take digital transformation and indeed the knowledge economy to another level. I hope we will be seeing a lot more of these sort of similar platforms where we are educating the general public and where we are also providing this sort of opportunity for the general public to interact with us and indeed consume the services themselves.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Thank you for managing the proceedings. You did a very professional job. We look forward to seeing you again as well. And yes, please talk to us. We'll be holding more of these sessions. So we're sharing more information, we're showing you more of what we can do, and we'll be bringing on more and more partners as we do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Frustrated by COVID? How about if you could group chat or video conference with up to 1,000 people? What if you could easily join a chat or call with your whole team? What if you could edit and collaborate on the same Microsoft Office documents in real time? The boardrooms and meeting rooms might be empty, but life and the bottom line is not standing still. Introducing Microsoft Teams from BTC. How about you invite everyone you work with to work together? Be seen, be heard, be there when you are not. Share your files and your opinion. Unleash the power of your team with Microsoft Teams from BTC.